Happy Monday, guys, and welcome to the latest show that we have with Tim Bertram. And for a lot of you guys that know Tim, he's certainly one of the main innovators we're seeing in dentistry today, especially with his mastery of removable partial dentures and the way it's 3D printed. So I'd like to welcome Tim to our show. Tim, thanks for
Thank you.
joining us today.
Thank you very much for the invite and having me. Very nice that you guys reached out and have an interest in RPD as the redheaded stepchild of the dental industry. Yeah, so I appreciate the invite, and that's nice to be here. We've talked a little bit before the program starting up here on some of the history and the technology. It seems like RPDs are kind of always a category that lags behind in technology, but we've been really focused on trying to bring that technology to RPDs and be the partner for labs and be able to help them once they have a CAD design and are looking for some place to manufacture that.
Well, I mean, by way of intro, people are always wondering, how does one end up running an RPD lab, specifically a digital RPD lab? Like, did you wake up one day and say, this is what I want to be when I grow up? Or how does that work?
Yeah, well, no, not exactly that story, but I think like a lot of people in the industry, they have family around them that introduces them to that. And that's the case here too. My grandfather, he did chrome. He was a frame lab named Precision Chrome in the 50s. He eventually sold that lab to Denticon. Then my dad, William Bertram, and my uncle, Tom Bertram, they started Bertram Dental Lab in 1976 and have been running it until my cousin, Joe, and myself made the purchase in 2018. And we've been running it since and really doing our best to find those efficiencies and do the technology and bring things digital. But to clarify, we still do a lot of investment casting due to capacity limits that we're at right now. But we still do a lot of investment casting, but we do a lot of digital too.
And if you look at your business today, I mean, what percentage would be digital versus traditional?
We're getting close to that 50% mark right now, where we're getting our files that we're receiving from labs. Here's a CAD design of an RPD, just manufacture this, is really grown, especially in the last year, exponentially. So we've had to ramp our production as quickly as we can to accommodate those labs and be that resource that they can send to.
And so backtracking, you take over the lab in 2018 and you and your cousin, I mean, I'm assuming you're a lot younger than the generation before you.
Right.
And you go, okay, we've got these awesome ideas. Like, what were you doing before you took over? And, what kind of changes did you want to do once you and your cousin took over?
Good question. I did designing. When I say designing, I'm not talking sitting behind a computer. I'm talking traditional survey and design of a model. I did that for 10 years by hand, just drawing 40, 50 RPDs a day. And after...
That's fast.
Well, Joe's way faster than I am. So he probably does 60, 70 solo.
Wow.
Just survey and design. Yeah, he can do some great work, and his team too that he's got, of designers that are just drawing. And we take that drawing and we scan that, and we use 3Shape, and we have the texture scan, and obviously we're CAD designing off of that. But anyways, to your earlier question, in, I'll say 2014-ish was when I started working with 3Shape and learning the CAD designing. And then when we made the purchase of the lab in 2018, then one of the big things in buying the company was I knew at that time we didn't want anything to do with the real estate that was involved with the business. We knew we wanted to make a move to a larger facility. So we did not, I'll say, renew that lease. And then we made a purchase of our own building so we could scale up, because we wanted to scale up our production with the SLM metal printers. So those were the two big items as far as, how can we scale up this metal printing, and how can we get a bigger facility? And that's been our focus the last 3 years.
So let's do a quick survey before we see what questions people are asking. I mean, primarily, who here is involved in partial dentures? So yes, they make them in-house. Yes, they outsource them, or no. Just to get an idea of the knowledge level of the people that are watching us today. And while we're filling that in, a couple of the questions here. Well, someone's asking, what exactly do you guys do? Do you just make the frames or the entire RPD?
Oh, great question. We do just the frames, just the chrome work. If somebody really wants to have some acrylic work done, we do work with a local lab, but honestly, that's not the workflow we really want to do it a lot of. We want to work with those labs that, they're doing their setups, and we can provide the frame.
Yeah, so, and the audience we have, a good, 60, 76% of it, 77% almost, are actually familiar with partials, and they do them in-house or outsource them. So we've got the right crowd that is curious to learn about you. And so, I mean, fast forward to today, you mentioned you guys do primarily framework, 50% digital, 50% analog. And from what I've heard from people that have been dealing with you, they love your work. I mean,
no, thank you.
You seem to have mastered something that I know I never mastered, which is producing RPDs at scale. Right? I mean, you guys do a lot of volume and do it consistently, and the quality and the fit is good or great. So the feedback from our clients has been that you guys are one of the best in the industry that they've dealt with. And how does one get to that level of expertise and scale, I guess is my question, right?
Yeah, we've got a lot of key employees that have 30, 40 years, and that's a big factor. Just like any lab, I have a lot of respect for full service labs, because I think it's got to be extremely difficult to maintain all those different product lines and the knowledge, where we're just focusing on, we do a very small volume of flexible partials, but our main focus with the metal frameworks, we have that knowledge for training. The only thing we've really had to do in the last 10 years is obviously the digital, to learn that, master that, and then grow that side of the business.
Yeah, and I mean, are you a big fan of the digital side of the business? Would you prefer customers sent it to you digitally or traditionally?
That's a tough question, because we get that question a lot. I would prefer one of two workflows. One would be they're either shipping a stone model, and we can physically draw on that model, scan that model, and then do a CAD design, and then do the final fit to the model that was actually scanned. Or that lab is doing their own CAD design and sending the CAD designed frame for us to print. And we can offer that frame sent back to them, sandblasted or a pre-polished finish. So I'll say you still got to do that last 5% of fit it to the model and confirm everything looks good, but it's cutting a ton of time down for them.
Do you 3D print your models as well?
We don't.
So
that
you
was
still
a
pour them.
yeah, we still pour them, or we receive the models from the customers. It just seems like most labs we work with already have their own model printer. So are they
Oh,
going
I
to
see.
be
So they
willing
send it to
to,
you.
yeah, they really going to really be willing to pay for us to print it. So yeah,
Got it.
they'll ship us the 3D printed model if that's what they have.
Yeah, that's one of the questions I saw on the screen. If you don't know much about partials, how would you start sending frames to you? Could you walk me through the process? And I guess, uh, at least if I paraphrase, correct me if I understood wrong. You have two methodologies. One, you'd prefer clients send you the impression, and
Or
then
the
you
store model.
digitize, or the stone model, and you
Yep.
digitize that.
Mm-hmm.
And the second is, you'd prefer clients sent you files that have already been designed, and then you print those.
Correct.
Right. And uh, I know you've been swamped. Uh, are you taking on new clients now, or uh, maybe waiting until you've got more capacity?
We're as far as analog workflow, like physically sending a model, we haven't been able to accept new accounts now for about 6 months. We are starting a waiting list as far as people that are looking to send STLs of already designed frames. We're at capacity right now there as well, but we are adding on a 5th printer this month. So that's going to bump up a little bit, and we're going to, keep that list of people that would like to send to us so we can reach out to them.
And to give the audience some insight, I mean, you're not talking about $10,000 printers on the tabletop here. You've got these monstrous
Yeah.
machines that cost $1 million each, right?
Yeah, about that price range. 13 feet long, run on, I think it's 408 volts, 3-phase. So it's quite a production, and you need argon or nitrogen gas, inert gas, to run them. And we're adding on our full nitrogen bank system this month as well, where we're going to be completely self-reliant on generating our own nitrogen in-house as well, instead of
Wow.
yeah, instead of buying the bottles, which we've been doing for a long time, big 12 bank bottles we've been buying. Now we'll just generate our own nitrogen.
So, how does one generate their own nitrogen? I'm just curious. And like, do you have to go to the Department of Defense to say, "I've got to generate my own nitrogen here"?
No. You just got to grease the right wheels, I guess. No, it's
Yeah.
really common in a lot of industries, actually. Even packaging, like food packaging, they use a lot of these gas generating systems. So they're definitely out there. This particular system is coming from Belgium, company that makes compressors. It's called Atlas Copco. Pretty common in the compressor world. So yeah, we're really excited to get this in house. Everything's all plumbed up, ready to go. We just need to have the power hookup, and we'll be set.
Yeah, I find it fascinating just listening to you, because the RPD business, if you just focus on the RPDs, it's a totally different business than the labs, right? I mean,
Right.
the machinery is different. You know, the requirements for whether it's nitrogen or uh, argon or whatever else. I mean, to do it at scale requires a focus that is hard if you're already doing crowns, bridges, implants, and then you're going to add this to your repertoire. It's not that simple.
Right. Yeah, it is definitely, and I can see why, casting over the years, to your point, all the equipment involved with casting any kind of volume of RPDs takes a lot. So you have to have that whole department, and either you have a department and you have enough work to scale that a little bit, or at that point, if you don't, it's probably worth outsourcing and not
Yeah.
dealing with it.
Now, I know a lot of guys would love to hear uh, what's your insight into the future of dental laboratories? Because you're very digital. Uh,
Hmm.
Half your work at scale, and again, this is not the tabletop digital as I call it. This is a full digital production facility.
Yep.
Where do you see the future of, starting with removables and even fixed, whether it's implants or what? Like, how do you see that panning out in the future?
I just see it expanding exponentially from where we're at. I think um, the world market is growing. Borders are getting closer, whether you like that or not. Um, and I think IT is a huge role, as I'm sure most people know, in their labs. We have a full-time IT director. We hired on another IT person, and their ability to make the digital side really flow is very critical. When you're talking about how are you getting your files, whether you're a retail lab and you're working with dentists, and how are they uploading to you? Is that efficient? Is that trackable? As well as when you're talking on in scale, how you're getting hundreds of files a day that you have to
Yeah.
have organization, you have to have tracking. And IT is going to be the leader in this field's growth, as we know, whether it's software or your internal software for how you handle those files.
I mean, that's a great point uh, because you're the first person that's ever mentioned that of all the discussions that I've had the last 18 months. And what people are not thinking through is once you go digital, you've got two issues. Number one, how do you store and protect the privacy of that information? That's your
Right.
responsibility. And then the second is, okay, whenever someone's looking for a file, before I remember when I started in the lab business, we had 12 people. I would stand up from my bench and go, okay, who's got Mr. Smith's case? Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
Just
pray that and pray that no one dropped the veneer or the crown, and that it's actually there, right? And
right.
how do you do that digitally, right?
Right. And that's you got to have your process down. How we back up
Uh,
our files internally at certain time intervals, and we still store the actual paper RXs that we get in house. But I'd love to get to the point, we're not there yet, where those are getting scanned and we can house that, just that scan data.
yeah, well, I'm happy to introduce you to the guys at Evident that manage that because we're doing that for a lot of people right now.
Oh, are you? Okay.
Yeah, so we just upload. I mean, separate topic altogether, but historical prescriptions. You know how we had to store prescriptions 7 to 10 years, depending on what state you're in, and all the paper prescriptions. We have a methodology to scan, upload it, and then you can access it. So it's just part of the service that we've been offering. So. But you're right. I mean, that's one of the big challenges. What we're seeing with labs is they're receiving digital files from, I don't know, 10, 12 different sources. Everyone's got their own portal. You've
Yep.
got someone sitting at that desk just dragging and dropping all of these
All right.
into one spot. I mean, that's a $50,000 expense a year just to have someone sitting there pulling files back and forth. And then you've got to find them and figure out where they are and curate them. And then in your case, if you're running a digital process, you've also got to let people know when the files are coming back, when to expect them, so that they
Right.
can put them in their production flow, right?
Right. Everybody, wants to have that information. When can I get it back? And that's easier with a digital workflow, because one thing that we do in house is we call it the Domino's tracker. You go order your Domino's pizza and you see when it leaves here, when it's there, and then when it's going to be delivered. And we're continuously trying to develop and improve on that, where when this print gets done in the printer, we set the status. So that status is updated and that's live internally. And then when it gets out of post-processing, that status gets updated. And when it leaves the finishing department, that status gets updated. And then the last thing would be the tracking number gets posted to that final step. And
Yeah.
that's just easier with a digital workflow.
Yeah. I imagine in an analog workflow, you've got someone that has to data entry that stuff. And again,
Right. And because prints
yeah,
for us are in a batch size, that's just, in this print, let's say you have 40 cases for 40 case pan numbers. Well, then you can group them all together. Okay, this 40, that status is completed. It's moving to the next status of production.
now, one of the things that has driven me nuts, at least when we started printing and milling in the labs that I owned previous to Evident, uh, when you print a batch, how do you identify, what tooth or what
Yeah.
crown or what goes to what? Do you put numbers in the inside of the RPDs?
Oh, that's a great question. And that's something we've struggled with because we could either try to put a number like you're saying on the RPD inside, or maybe like a little tags, let's say like a little
Yeah.
tag hanging off of it. But that's going to add a fair amount of time on our end, tagging and IDing each part. So what we actually do is a screenshot. And that's kind of our bottleneck for logging in. We've made things
Yeah.
efficient as possible for logging cases in, but we take a screenshot of the RPD that posts to the job, and then we ID it by just literally looking at the part compared to the picture.
It just comes from like I said, when I owned labs, and we would do a full mouth case and mill all the veneers and the crowns, and then you're trying to figure out, okay, which veneer goes to what. And
Yeah, and how do you do
you
that?
know
Because you can't do like a screenshot like I'm talking with that. There's not enough things identifying on a picture to help you.
yeah, what we would do is exactly the same. Do a screenshot of the puck, and then by hand
Oh, mark
put
it.
numbers to it. Yeah. But some of the milling machines started to come up with their own methodology that you could actually add numbers to the back of to the lingual of whether it's a veneer or a
Mm-hmm.
crown. And what I'm thinking is that, I mean, full disclosure, we designed a number of partials for Bertram. You gave me an idea that after this, I'll go back to the guys and let them know if we can start putting some numbers. At least the ones that come from Evident, you can track them a
Mm-hmm.
bit more easier if we put some numbers in the back. And I'm pretty sure we can get some of the software developers we have to figure that out. Yeah. It'll just make life simpler. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying it's foolproof. I'd be lying if I said we never sent the wrong case out, but we're pretty accurate. It's those cases
Yeah.
that you have your typical 2 canines remaining, and you might have 2 cases that look very, very close. That those are the ones that make it a little tough.
Yeah. And I mean, how do you scale up a business like yours? So you've already got let me backtrack. I think you're at the point that you can already scale up because you've got the infrastructure, you've got the people, you've got the technology,
Sure.
and a lot of this is your own intellectual property. So, good for you that you've developed these secret processes in your lab. But let's backtrack. 3, 4, 5 years ago, when you're thinking of doing this, uh, like what are the challenges you had to go through?
A lot of R&D was like anybody bringing in a new piece of equipment or machinery, we had to figure out how to be efficient in the CAD workflow, the supporting and nesting, I'll call it, workflow, and that's a totally different software than most labs use for nesting or supporting their printing. once a print of RPDs is completed, we have to heat treat that. So we had to figure out and learn the heat treat process for that. And then now you have, for us, a batch size of 40 to 45 partials on a plate. How do you get these partials off a plate? So some people in the 3D printing world would use a bandsaw is one method that works. Personally, I don't like it. We don't use that. We use an EDM machine. And it's
What's an EDM machine?
it's amazing. It's a electric discharge machine. It's used in the machining world. It's a piece of brass wire, 12 thousandths of an inch thick, that cuts the parts. It just cuts metal using deionized water.
Wow.
Yeah, so the deionized water flows over the plate, and the wire is actually the conductor. The water does not conduct electricity as you would think it would. It's actually an insulator because it's deionized, and then it cuts the parts from the plate with way more accuracy than a bandsaw would. And then it also leaves your plate much cleaner because we resurface our own plates in house. We have a grinding machine to resurface, and we reuse our own plates then.
Wow. I mean, again, I think it's great for people to get context that this is not about tumbling some cast partials,
Right. Yeah.
in a closet that you've got with a machine that's 80 years old,
Right.
that is sitting there, right? And which I've seen in many labs before. Uh, this is truly about bleeding edge technology and taking pieces from different parts of the machining world and putting them to use in the lab business.
Right. And I'm no G code expert, and that's what it takes to run an EDM. We literally know what we need to know. How do you cut left to right? X, Y. That's it.
And don't stick your finger in there.
Right. Exactly. Yep. Yep. But you're right. It's adapting old machining technology that's still current, but works perfect for this. And that industry as a whole is also trying to adapt because, for example, GF machining, or sometimes people call it the old Charmy, they make a machine now that's specifically geared towards additive manufacturing and metal printing and just cutting parts off, which they've never had before. And that's called the AM 500. It's a huge machine if you're doing big builds.
Yeah, again, I know a lot about the lab business. I have to admit, partials are something that I'm probably the worst at, and only because through my career and all the labs I've owned, we've struggled to make partials work. It
Right.
was just tough. So
Right.
that's why I'm so impressed with what you've done. I mean, what makes a good removables department in your eyes? And everyone's complaining about the shortage of people, and
Right. Training is really the difficulty right now. To have somebody that has the knowledge to share, and having somebody that can do a survey and design. I'm talking a traditional survey and design on a model with a pencil and a surveyor is invaluable. Whether you're doing digital or analog, that doesn't matter, because like with us, we're doing it either way. We're doing a survey and design on a model, and then that's either going to our waxing team, who is by hand, laying a pattern, waxing it, investment cast, or we're sending it to CAD.
And I mean, like in our case, a year ago, we had, oh gosh, we would get 1 or 2 digital RPDs a day.
Yeah.
And today we get hundreds.
Wow.
And so we've had to build our own digital RPD team. And I've just been surprised at the rate of growth of, digital RPDs. I mean, if you asked me a year ago, would that be one of the products going digital? I would have said no. But
Yeah.
now people are pushing, and you're certainly getting a lot of that as one of the leading labs in the United States today.
Sure.
Are you seeing that? Are you seeing that the ratios of digital is going up?
Yes, for sure. Especially like we talked about earlier, the files of just people out there that are learning how to CAD design their own frames, um, and looking for somebody to manufacture is really growing.
And like relative to doing it in-house and outsourcing to you, is it more expensive or less expensive?
To do it in-house or versus sending out,
Yeah.
it, in my opinion, it has to be cheaper to send out. And if you talk about the cost, and it really depends if you have some of the equipment already or not. If you have a big capital investment that you have to recoup and you don't have a lot of volume, then definitely cheaper to outsource. If you have enough volume and you have a team in-house and you have enough volume, it could be financially worth it, but then you have to be willing to maintain that training and that knowledge and that equipment, which can take a lot of space, as you know, for that department too, to maintain, and floor space, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I have this discussion a lot with people, and what I tell them is that figure out what your lab's main core competency will be
Mm-hmm.
and build your team around that. And everything else, go and find an outsourced partner that can work with you and scale up with you. Because the biggest expense, as I tell people, it's not the time a technician does to go and design something. That's only one component. You've
Right.
got the capital costs, you've got the software, hardware, all the updates, subscription fees. You factor that in, then you've got the training and recruiting costs, which
Right.
is pretty big in this industry. I mean, where are you going to find RPD experts at scale? You might be able to find one, might be able to find two, but try and find 10,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And
You're
then,
gonna have to grow them yourself.
yeah. And while you're growing them, you're investing a lot of capital to do that. So you've got technology, you've got equipment, and then you've got management costs and brain space. To me,
Yep.
that's the biggest issue because it requires someone to stay on it full time. I mean, guys like you or us, we're already at the scale that we have management infrastructure. But I'll tell you, my biggest cost is training and development
Sure.
because you take people out of production, you school them for, you know, in our case, months at a time. We rotate them through training, and that really becomes your biggest expense because it's non-productive costs, right? So
Right.
I
Right.
think people have a hard time understanding that. What do you see? Here's a question: what do you think is the biggest game changer to date in RPDs, and what are you seeing as the biggest game changer coming up?
Oh, that's a tough one. Well, obviously CAD in the last 5 years, maybe 8 years, has been the biggest game changer. Whether that CAD file is going to be printed in resin and they do print to cast, or whether they're doing metal printing with selective laser melting technology. But I do think in the future there's going to be more materials that are going to come to the foreground, as far as the flexible materials that we mill some of those materials. We work with a partner on milling those flexibles, but I think you were talking earlier about the zirconia materials, things
Uh-huh.
like that, non-metal related materials that are going to continue to be in the market.
And then the flip side is, what do you see your biggest challenge in scaling up? Because I know personally, you've got a lineup of labs
Yep.
wanting to send you work, and you're very selective about who you take on, rightfully
Right.
so. And what do you think the rate limiting factor is for you?
For us, it's gonna be, which amount of these labs are going to go digital, because right now you have your I'll say more traditional labs that They want to ship a model and be very hands off and have a partner like us to do the design and send them a frame. And we'll be able to scale up more easily with customers that have their CAD team or they're working with Evident and getting those designs, and then we can manufacture them. We'll be able to scale up with those type of customers that are embracing the digital more so.
So like the traditional stuff, and yeah, I can see where the challenges are in scaling up traditional manufacturing of cast partials, right?
Right.
It's tough to get that talent, man. And not only that, you're now competing with Amazon and some of the other guys, FedEx,
Oh,
UPS, who are all trying to take that labor force away and have them go switch there,
right.
So
Right.
yeah. But I know a guy who runs a restaurant chain in the U.S., a good buddy of mine, and he's having to pay $1,500 signing bonuses to go have people come work for him in the restaurant.
Really.
Yeah, he said,
Is he setting any type of time frame? They need to be there for X amount of time.
yeah, 90 days. So if they
Okay.
stay 90 days, they'll get the 1,500. Actually, he gives $500 up front and $1,000 after 90 days. So
Okay.
and and he goes, "Look, otherwise I'm not getting people applying, and it's
Yeah.
just
Well,
too
we
competitive." Yeah.
in the first time history of our lab, we recently hired a full-time HR person, and we've just grown to the point where we needed one, and I think the timing was good because, like, to your point, it's a tough market, and to have somebody
Yeah.
focused every day on getting us the right people and looking at those people has been very helpful. She's been doing a great job.
And that's why I caution labs. I go, guys, factor in that you're going to need a recruiter or recruiting costs, training costs, hardware, software, and then management costs. Unless it becomes a core business for you, you're better off to find, guys like Tim and send the work to them.
Right.
And
And in
what
the
do
end,
you look
there's
for? Sorry, go ahead.
sorry,
Sorry, go
and
ahead.
then to your earlier question, and in the end, whether you had asked me about the cost of keeping it
Yeah.
in house versus sending it out. Well, we're not really able to compare apples to apples or either, because if you're keeping it in house, you're casting it. And while that is a good product, if you want the SLM frames, there's not as many places to get that right now. So that you have to keep in your mind as well. And I think the demand for SLM frames is going to continue to grow. I think the word is out that they're a good product and they're very efficiently made. And I like to think the precision on them, look at the details on them, is very good.
So someone's asking, what do you look for in an RPD tech? Are there any traits that let you know the guy is good, or at least can be trained to be good? That's a
Yeah,
great question because I haven't found any.
right. It's really, you're just looking for somebody that has some manual dexterity, maybe a little bit of mechanical ability. It doesn't need to be RPD related, but if they can work on hobbies or crafts or their cars or some mechanical aptitude, I feel in RPDs is helpful for design. And then second, like everybody, you're looking for somebody that's dependable, that you can count on, that's not calling in and wants to learn. That's the hardest part. If you can find somebody that just is willing and wanting to learn, you should be able to fit them somewhere in your lab that they can work.
So how do you test for someone that wants to learn?
So we do a model test currently where we
Uh-huh.
make a duplicate model, and we have a basic pencil drawing of an RPD on a model, and we ask them to copy it. And then we look at, how accurately and nicely drawn is that duplicate copy of our original drawing.
Got it. Okay. So you're looking for someone with a bit of aptitude towards drawing and being able to translate something visual into something written, and then the desire to learn about how this whole process pans out. So,
Yeah, exactly.
and do you tend to find kids who are well versed in video games, or like is there a specific background that works better?
Well, we had some gamers recruited for CAD that have worked in the past, but I don't really feel like you need to have people that are necessarily gamers for CAD. It just, I feel, as bad as it sounds to say, people that are anywhere 40 and younger have grown up on this technology and they have enough knowledge base to do what you need for CAD.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think 15 years ago, technology was a new thing, but nowadays, if you haven't grown up with technology, it's kind of like where you been, So,
Right. And
where
it
you
just,
been hiding?
right. It just,
Have
it
you been
comes
in
more
jail?
natural. Right.
Yeah. So, um, here's a funny question. Is there some secret to running a removables department? I was talking to some buddies, and the trend seems to be that all of our removable departments are gong shows.
I don't know what to tell you on that one.
Yeah, yeah. In my career, I've struggled to uh, make removables departments as profitable as the fixed. I'm in a nice way. I would tend to agree with this last question. Not that they're gong shows. It just I could never get them to be as profitable as the fixed departments. But I think things are changing now. You
Right.
know.
But I still think you're going to have a premium on fixed. I don't think,
Mhm.
that's just my opinion. I don't think you're going to, I'll say margin wise, improve and beat fixed gross margins.
So yeah, what I'm seeing though is the fixed is actually getting pushed down and the removables are going up, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
because they're hard to find. I mean,
we haven't moved up that much in the last 5 years. Our price point has stayed pretty steady.
that's been good of you. Yeah.
But I've seen this year prices go up on other labs, removable labs, Chrome labs. I've what I've heard from
Yeah.
competitors, and a lot of that has to do with consumable costs. With COVID,
Yeah.
there's been labs, Chrome labs out there that can't even cast. They can't get investment.
Mhm.
They can't get wax patterns, or we're having the patterns problems. We're having to use other brands of patterns we've never used before because we can't get any other
Can't find
thing.
them. Yeah.
No, and you have to pay whatever the cost is to get them, so you can continue to work, which is then also pushing more digital naturally, because with metal printing, the only consumables we have are the metal powder and the nitrogen. So that
Yeah.
naturally makes you want to print more because you don't have these consumables that you're so dependent upon.
Yeah, and it's also because there's a bit more supply because it hasn't been as widely adopted yet. So the
Mm-hmm.
supply is far more stable. So you're right. There's someone here, Roger. Who do I contact? I know how to design metal partials in the past. I co-instructed with Bago when they had the course at Vida. So uh, if you're looking for someone to reach out to, Roger, just send us an email at Evident, and we'll plug you into the Tim after the show. And likewise, for anyone who's interested in uh, learning more about Tim's lab, I know before the show we discussed that he's at capacity right now, but he's starting to put together a wait list as they bring online more technology and more equipment, and it just takes time to set these things up, and big investment in in capital. So correct me if I'm wrong, Tim. We're putting together a wait list for you that when the capacity opens up, you'll start contacting people again.
Correct. Yeah, that would be ideal if we can maintain that list. It seems like, if you are serious and you want to be on that list, please do get on that, because it seems like as soon as we roll a printer on that, we can handle 40 to 50 more cases. It feels very fast. Last time it was about 3 weeks, and it was, we were full. So I'm not just saying that.
And I know I referred some guys from Wisconsin to you, and uh, they were like, when I was chatting with them, they were like, "Well, we've never seen a 3D printed cast partial that fits well," and they had all their reservations, and I said, I've got a guy for you to try because I know he does a great job." And they phone me back up and they go, "Wow,
Oh, good.
it actually fits."
That's
Yeah,
great. That's great.
yeah. They were like, "Wow." Yeah. And their concern is that a lot of their guys are, getting on in age, and they're slowing down and retiring, and there's no next generation of cast partial guys coming up the ranks.
Right.
It's
And
hard to
well,
find.
and if you can have a guy in-house that can do a survey and design and put a basic pencil drawing down, you are definitely ahead of the game. And we have put out, Bertram Dental Lab has put out training videos. I've been working with Evident, and we have eight videos now posted that link through our website that is complete 3-shape CAD design of doing RPDs. So it's, here's Bertram Dental Labs DME, and then I'm continuing to add to this library as we work with Evident to share that information, because we want to work with those labs that have that workflow idea down the road.
And from our part, all the labs that work with us were referring your way. So
Yeah.
I think that machine of yours, you might need two or three
Yeah.
because
Well,
the lineup is getting long.
yep. Yep. Well, the last order we
Oh,
did when we first moved into this new building, we did three printers in that order, and we did two additional this month on order.
wow. Well, I'm excited for that, and it's nice to know that when the machines go live, you'll already have the volume to support it. So that's even better.
Yeah.
Uh, just to get that
But if
comfort. I
you
mean,
on the training
go
videos, I
ahead.
should clarify, if somebody wants info on the training videos, contact Evident as well, and you can put them in contact with us, because they are posted to our website. You just need a password to access the link, and then you can train up, help train up your CAD team.
Yeah. Or if you need someone to just design it for you, let us know.
Yeah.
We'll figure out the design side piece. It's certainly, now that we've got our team scaled up, and you've been a big part of expanding our team, it's nice to have that core competency now. Here's a question: were you able to expand your capacity by going digital? And we're swamped and are looking for ways to scale up. You know,
Yeah,
I was going to say it's not as simple as just buying a machine, though, right? So
right. It was kind of twofold, because we had our traditional work, our analog work, I'll say, and our digital workflow, where we were accepting the files from customers, and that scaled up naturally on its own more easily. So yeah, we definitely scaled up with the new technology. But to your point, there is a lot more involved. You have to learn how to heat treat and how to support, and then also how to post process your RPDs.
and if someone wants to build like let's say, get the machine and all the stuff that you've got,
Yep.
how much do they need to spend?
to depends on, can you give me a number? Like they want to do, say, how many per day?
So let's say 50 partials a day.
I'm going to say probably around 2 million to really,
So it's no joke.
yeah, to really scale up for that
Yeah.
40, 50 partials.
So, um, and typically, what's your turnaround time for cases? If someone sends you a digital file, what's the
Somebody's,
turnaround?
yeah, somebody sends us a digital file. It's 2 days in lab for an unfinished case. So that's just a sandblasted finish. So if you
Okay.
upload on a, let's say Monday before
Uh-huh.
3 o'clock Central, we would then ship that on Wednesday.
So Monday before 3, Tuesday, Wednesday. So 2 days in-house, they get it 3 days later.
Yep. And
Pretty much as fast as you could do doing it on your own.
yeah, it's pretty fast. And if you do the pre-polished finish, it's 1 additional day.
Okay. And what do you see your biggest challenges today, Tim?
Scaling, continuing to scale. Yep.
I mean, it's a high class problem, but the problem nonetheless, isn't it? You know,
Right.
it's like that. Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, when you look at what's going on in the denture world, you know, with all the 3D printed dentures, and do you have any insight to what goes above the cast partials, or do you see any of the things that are going on
I
in the
don't
lab
see a
world?
lot
Yeah.
of it, other than in the flexible world. You know, I see more of that with the Valplast and doing the milling of the teeth and merging that with a Valplast frame, things like that. But as far as the 3D printed dentures, the full dentures, I don't see a lot of that on my end.
Yeah, and as I was mentioning to Tim when we were chatting before the show, I mean, I'm seeing companies with, you know, 3D printed zirconia, 3D printed titanium, and they're all looking at the cast partial market, trying to find out what the opportunity is and whether the technology will work. So I'm curious where it will end up. Right?
Well, I'm seeing more too in the metal when you talk about the different metal printing. So with selective laser melting, you know, I don't know if people are totally familiar with that technology, but it's that powdered alloy bed. And there's technology out there that's trying to think of the correct name. It's metal deposition, where it's powder laid down and then a binder laid on top of that, and then that final part is sintered or heat treated to make your final. I don't see that technology working for RPDs. Everything I've seen and experienced in metal deposition, the final part is too brittle to be an RPD.
No. Yeah, what's interesting is listening to you. You're not so much a lab expert or a dental expert as you are now a materials expert, right?
Yeah,
And
I,
being able to understand all the newest materials in the dental space.
yeah, you have to know that, and also a little bit of additive and a little bit of machining. It's kind of like you're like this little hybrid engineer in our team of CAD people that run the machines too. They're just very versed in a lot of
Yeah,
areas.
it's like, you know, the actual design of the RPDs. I mean, guys like us do that and send it to you.
Right.
But now it's understanding all the materials and all the processes and that expertise. That's no longer dental lab expertise. That's materials and 3D printing expertise, right? And
Right.
you could 3D print body parts, hips, whatever. As
Yeah.
long as you understand, you know, what goes on, then you're good to go.
Right.
Interesting. Now we've got final poll here, just to make sure that people who want credits or want any information on Evident Digital Design Services, and if anyone wants to be on the wait list for Bertram Dental Lab as they expand their capacity, then let us know as well. And, just write down to call you, and we'll contact you and get your name and prepare that list for Tim. That was our commitment to get him to agree to do a webinar with us. It's like at this point in time. So, any parting words for the industry in general, Tim? I mean, I consider you definitely one of the innovators in this space today, and in fact, I'm grateful that you ended up dealing with us, and through that, I was introduced to you, and really fascinating story. I quite enjoyed the discussion on the technology, So
No, I appreciate the invite to the show, and I think parting words, I would say, I think everybody is doing their best and adapting to materials and manufacturing processes, and we've come a long way in 5 years. Everybody that's involved in the industry. So, cut yourself a break when you have a machine go down and you got these tight turnaround times, that you're not the only one in that boat.
Yeah, I think what I learned from listening to you is uh, that this whole industry is evolving so quickly that people are developing their expertise in production based on what focus they have in the industry. And there's groups of people all over the world, such as yourself, that have mastered certain aspects of this new technology that's coming down, or have put together equipment from different industries
Yep.
to be able to master the output. And that's no simple feat. I mean, like, I wouldn't know where to begin if I went, okay, I got to figure out how to come up with, RPDs that fit like you made them in house, and all these different customers, all these different parameters. How do we make sure that they all work the same way? Well, that's pretty good. And congratulations to you. I think you've done an excellent job, man. And I look forward to seeing your business scale up, because I do think it's one of the, if not the leading, certainly one of the leading RPD labs in the United States today. So well done, man.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And for all the attendees, again, thanks for spending an hour with us. Tim, thank you for, I know you're swamped, so thank you for sharing your time with us. And I hope you guys all have a busy week, and stay safe. Take care.
Take
Bye-bye.
care, guys.